We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences. Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark, though not too dark. It's 8:40. It's February 5th. It's a Monday, I think, though all my days are turning into one big long day. I'm joined, as always, by fellow editor over at Mavs Moneyball, Josh Bowe. We're coming to you right after the Mavericks defeated the Sixers 118-102. How you doing, Josh?
Doing pretty good. I love recording at 8:40 local time. That's a great feeling.
I feel fresh.
Yeah, and if the Mavericks would have lost this game, we probably would have had to do some sort of apocalyptic type podcast. So I'm glad we don't have to expend that energy tonight. We can save it for another night if that happens. So
Yep.
All's good. We could just this is going to be a stress-free podcast. I think.
I think that's right. Yeah. I'm looking at the recent wins, and can you throw some of those stats you were tweeting out the other night at the team? Like, I want to hear about it.
About how rare this win was.
Yeah. Yes.
So this is the Mavericks' first win since January 7th without a 40-point score. January 7th was a month ago, so it's been a long time. And this one is from Chuck Cooperstein, radio voice of the Mavericks. This is the Mavericks' fifth win, scoring under 120 points this season. And the Mavericks have 27 wins. So that goes to show you how rare this game was. It was also, shout out to Kenny, longtime follower of the site and the podcast. I believe this was the Mavericks' first double-digit win since they beat Portland, which felt like ages ago.
January 5th. So a literal full month ago.
Yes. So January was not a great month, despite, Luka scoring 73 in a game and some pretty wild wins. They did not have a good January. So this was a feel-good win, an expected win. If you lose to a 76ers team that is more injured than the Mavericks are, which is saying a lot. If they lost this game, we're talking, I don't even know, we're talking some biblical things that are probably going to happen to this team if they would have lost this game. So they took care of business. You're not going to hang a banner for this win, but they did what they were supposed to. And Kyrie came back and played a full game. And as far as we know, is not hurt again. So,
but a nice game too.
Yeah.
There was a lot of mid-game kind of first and second quarter. If you're watching those first two quarters, it did not feel good, is what I will describe that first half, because Tyrese Maxey of the Sixers got into foul trouble in the first quarter. Dallas could not capitalize and was down. Just playing a really sloppy game. We'll circle back to the fact that one of probably the most important thing of this entire game, and I mean this sincerely, Luka Doncic was the third highest scorer in the game, and they did not need him to be amazing. And that ended up, there's a really interesting kind of team factor components in here that we haven't seen from this Mavericks group in a while. And I'm sure there's, your cadre of assholes being like, see what happens when Luka doesn't do blah, blah, blah. And it's
I already got that in my mentions tonight.
And I'm just like,
look at what they played again. Like,
I just really want to, look, I really want to, just this quick sidebar, I really want to ask you as a sports fan, what is more important to you? The team you root for winning, or you yelling at a stranger on the internet? If it's the second thing, I implore you to find another hobby. It's too...
Well, they think that this is how you win the games, which to just
by beating
go too far down the weeds.
Beating a Sixers team that was essentially in the same state as the Dallas Mavericks were the last game. They're missing 3 starters, including once and future MVP Joel Embiid. Like, what are we doing? The Mavericks should have beaten the shit out of this team. It's great that they figured it out in the second half. It's really important that they did. Yep. And I like said that first half was not nice. I mean, I tweeted this. My 7-year-old was sitting there next to me. I made him go to bed at halftime, and he's like, "Why are we watching this? This is awful."
Yeah, it was especially bad because it wasn't like the Orlando game where the team was like unnecessarily hot. Like the Sixers shot 28% from 3 in the first half. Like it was all Maverick. Like everything that the Sixers did well in the first half was a result of the Mavericks' really sloppy play, whether it was turnovers, bad offense leading to the Sixers getting easy transition opportunities. Like the Sixers lead in the first half felt extremely fake, and not to disrespect the Sixers, but like they are a team that's extremely down bad. And I just didn't feel like anything they were doing was the reason they were winning. It just felt like the Mavericks were playing just so poorly that it allowed the Sixers to kind of creep into a 4-point at halftime. And then the Mavericks came out in the second half and it was like, okay, yeah, let's take care of business. And they did.
Mm-hmm. Let's be the better basketball team. And there's,
Kyrie
Irving, 35 minutes, 10 of 17 shooting, 8 assists, 5 boards, couple of steals. My favorite play, 1 turnover. You're right. My favorite play that I saw from him was he received. Ooh, hello. God, I really hate autoplay on websites.
ESPN, isn't it?
It's always ESPN. It's ESPN. There was a really neat cut. I mean, it's just like it's a cut to the basket. So it's like, is it a neat cut? But it's like we don't see a lot of cutting in the Mavericks offense. Kyrie cut, and Josh Green was in the corner with the ball and found him, like threaded the needle with a nice pass to where Kyrie just basically had to like move his hands an inch and lay it in. And it's nice. I like stuff like that. Particularly when it's things at the basket. I mean, I know a lot of the Mavericks offense is predicated on 3-pointers. I had one guy, Mac Reddy, who always sends me funny stuff. He said this just about the Mavericks offense. He said it was about Jalen Brunson, but he said, I still believe if Brunson took more 3-pointers when he was here, Cuban would have paid him because that's how Cuban's brain work. 3-pointers go brrr. And I've been laughing about it for like 2 hours. But it's just, a little bit of like a lot of things going on with the offense tonight. Some really fun numbers. It's Josh Green had a, probably, what do you think? Like his 3rd straight really good scoring game.
Yep. Yeah. First good game of the season with Luka and Kyrie both healthy, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Which is important. He started again, and I don't think he's coming out of the starting lineup so long as he keeps, making 50% of his threes. He's 10.
Well, the corner shots are particularly, like Mark Followill highlighted this. The corner shots feel as good as, and this is maybe a little bit hyperbole, but feel as good as when Dorian Finney-Smith was really humming.
Yeah.
It's just nice. Like it's not an easy shot. It's not the hardest shot in the world because a lot of these shots are wide open, but still you just gotta knock them down. And it's just nice to see.
Yeah, he's 10 of his last 18 on threes, which is really good.
Like
2
more
straight
volume,
games with 20
please.
points. Yeah, for sure.
I guess he took 7. Seven's really nice.
Yeah. It's only 18 because he took 3 in the first game that I mentioned of the last 3. He's taken 15 in the last 2 games, which is there you go. That's nice. To be honest, his offensive game was good, but like he's had since about the start of January, he's been pretty good on offense, I would say. I mean, he was 50 from the field, 42.5% from three in the month of January. So he rebounded pretty well when he came back from that elbow injury on offense. To me, and what I need to see from Green is defense, because I don't think his defense was very good in January, despite his offense coming around. And tonight, his defense was very good. It might have been one of his best defensive games of the season. And to be honest, it might have been like the first time I felt like the Mavericks really executed a defensive game plan. Because I know that, the Sixers are kind of a shambling corpse right now, but Tyrese Maxey is still really good. He scored 51 points a couple of games. Like literally earlier, like last week, he scored 51 points in a win against the Utah Jazz. And that was with basically the same roster of dudes he was playing with tonight. He had 15 on 6 of 16 shooting, only got to the free throw line 3 times, had 3 turnovers. I thought the Mavericks, when you look at what they were rolling out, the Sixers, like the automatic assumption, it looked like double. Like there was just no one. It felt like, the Mavericks did to the Sixers what a lot of teams do to the Mavericks with Luka, when they're like, okay, none of these other guys scare us. Like we are not scared of Josh Green or Maxi Kleber or Derek Jones or Grant Williams. We are scared of Luka. Like we are going to dare these other guys to beat us. And that's basically what the Mavericks did, because they were not scared of Daniel House. They were not scared of Paul Reed. They were not scared of Kelly Oubre or Marcus Morris or Patrick Beverly or Jaden Springer, rookie. Like they were like, fine. Like every time Harris dribbled inside the 3-point line, he faced 2 defenders. Anytime he ran a pick and roll, after the first quarter, I'd say, for some reason, they didn't start doubling him right away, and he scored like 9 points in the first 8 minutes of the game, which was not good. But then after that, they started doubling him almost every pick and roll. And the Sixers offense was absolutely toast. They didn't do anything really after the first quarter. They scored 24 in the second, 17 in the third, and 28 in the fourth. And that 28 in the fourth is boosted by like 8 or 10 points in garbage time when the game was kind of well decided. So, kudos to the Mavericks for doubling Maxey, for like kind of executing a game plan. It might feel obvious, but
right.
With this coaching staff, I don't think you take, with Jason Kidd, I don't think you take for granted them doing the obvious. And Green was a big part of that. They put him on Maxey, and he was part of those double teams and those aggressive trapping and things like that. Green had 2 steals. So my thing with Green is the scoring is nice, and I'm not trying to downplay it at all. Sure. But I want to see him string together like 2 or 3 good defensive games in a row. So he's got one tonight. Can he do another one tomorrow against another team that the Mavericks should win?
Should be a bunch of rangy guys. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's that's my biggest takeaway tonight, honestly, is defensively. It wasn't the hardest challenge, but they did it. They didn't let this team hang around by giving up a bunch of backdoor cuts or being lazy in the paint or being lazy with the rotations. So that's kind of takeaway for me.
Well, folks, we've been here about 10 minutes. This probably isn't going to be our longest show, simply because we have another one tomorrow night. And I think Josh and I would like to do something else with our evenings other than Mavs basketball work. So we're going to take a quick break here, and I'm going to ask you guys to go and like the stream. If you could consider subscribing while you're down there, I'd be very grateful. If you're listening on an audio platform on, Spotify, Apple, please consider leaving a review. Really appreciate that sort of thing. And those who are watching on video, if it's already been posted, or if you're watching it, at a later date, or when this show ends, you can go and leave a comment on the actual video as opposed to the live stream. That would be really helpful to Josh and I. Now we're going to cut to some, ads real quick, and at least for those who are listening on an audio platform, and we will be right back.
We're driven by the search for better. But when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Leveraging over 140 million qualifications and preferences every day, Indeed's matching engine is constantly learning from your preferences, Join more than 3.5 million businesses worldwide that use Indeed to hire great talent fast. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Just go to Indeed.com/Blue Wire right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/Blue Wire. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. The playoffs are heating up, and you can still play along for the rest of the football season on Underdog Fantasy. You may have heard of their Pick'em game, where you pick higher or lower on 2 to 5 of your favorite players' stats. You'll want to check it out. It's fast, it's easy, it's fun, and you could win up to 100 times your money in one night playing it. If you haven't signed up yet, you can get in the game now by heading on over to Underdog Fantasy's app or their website, UnderdogFantasy.com. If you use promo code BLUEWIRE, they'll match your first deposit up to $100, and you'll be ready for the big game. Disclaimer, must be 18 plus, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT-STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
All right. So, trying to think kind of what else we would really discuss in this game.
Did Maxey take steroids last
well,
week?
so I feel like I talked about this last game where I said I wouldn't be surprised if Maxey rattles off like a really good a really good like week of basketball or two, because he's just so confidence based. I mean, it's been years.
Really is.
It's been years, and I try not to bring this up very much because it's weird and kind of embarrassing. But there was an incident that happened several years ago with Nick Angstadt of Locked On Mavs, where he tweeted something about the effect of like, look at how like handsome Maxey is, and there was like some girls looking at him, and Maxey's then girlfriend at the time found Nick and was like, you need to stop talking about him like that. And ever since then, I can't get it out of my head that like when Maxey, it's like it's an ongoing joke where it's like somebody in the chat actually said it. Adam Ferris, he said Maxey has to have a new girlfriend, and there's just like confidence is so key for his game. I mean, he took a floating mid-range baseline jumper today.
He took Paul Reed from the 3-point line and two-hand dunked it.
I mean, where the fuck has this been? 5
assists.
Fantastic. I mean, it's like, it's not a complaint. Like,
no, yeah.
Please stay. Like, I'm sure we're going to get yelled at by one of the Mavs, like Bally Sports crew at some point for not appreciating Maxey more. But I mean, if you're curious about Maxey, man, go check out the man's game logs for the past 2 years. There's a bunch of butt. He's been bad for a long time. And whether it's injury, confidence, and injury together, it looks good now. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Can you filibuster for one more second? Because I want to add up some numbers.
Can Kirk talk more? Is that's definitely a thing I can do.
Okay.
And that's, the passing up of shots is the part that's driven me crazy. I think his defense is more or less maintained, though the Mavericks have put him in positions where I don't think it's fair. I prefer him as a help defender rather than as the last line of defense. But, if he's going to hit just enough shots over a long enough period, like if he can just stay hot for a week, that'll carry over for a while because he has a track record of hitting stuff, and I think that affects the scouting reports. All of this stuff bleeds over into time. If you don't ever shoot the ball, which is a problem with some of the Mavericks that are on the team, then that eventually becomes part of the scouting report, and then the team's defenses are just happy overloading on Kyrie and Luka because they don't think you're going to do anything with the ball. So Maxey hitting stuff is nice.
Okay. So, yeah, it is. I totally agree. So at the end of January, so to start the month of February, Maxey on the season had scored 47 points. He has scored 35 in the last 2 games of February. These first 2 games of February. He has basically scored like 98% or whatever of his season points in the last 2 games. Or whatever. I don't know what the math is. Maybe almost, I don't know what the math is. But he's scored a lot of his points, or maybe half his points, I want to say, in the last 2 games. So that's just to put into context just where he was. And obviously he hasn't played a lot because he basically missed all of November and December. But he played most of January, and he averaged 3.8 points per game. And in the month of February, 2 games in, he's averaging 21. Not 21. He's averaging like 18 or whatever it is. So, yeah, not bad. They definitely need him. Is he going to be able to? And what was nice was he did, one of the games was against Milwaukee, which is a matchup that shouldn't suit him. So yeah, like that was huge. Jaden Hardy had a nice game scoring wise. Like pretty much everyone kind of did something besides Tim Hardaway Jr., who almost was primarily the main reason they had a first half deficit and noticeably did not play a lot in the second half. So
I wonder when the last time he went scoreless was. I tried to look it up on StatMuse and I couldn't find it.
It hasn't happened this season, so I mean, at least dating back to sometime last season, maybe. I don't know.
Man,
it's been a while. But he had a bad game. It's going to happen. He's been shooting well from 3 for like the last month, so it's not that alarming. What would have been alarming was if he would have kept playing. If he would have ended up with like 34, 35 minutes and the Mavericks lose. So, good for the quick hook. Lean on Josh Green. Lean on Jaden Hardy. So yeah, I don't know what else to really say.
Well, let me ask you this: do you think that the Mavericks' run was caused by Hardaway going to the bench? Like, do you think that played a factor?
Oh, absolutely. He was terrible in the first half. I mean, he was bad offensively and defensively.
Then let me ask you one more question: would you like to over-index this one game and think back to the 2021-22 season where when Tim Hardaway went down with the Golden State Warriors, and then the Mavericks went on a run to the Western Conference Finals? Do you think there is a there as in, because I've talked at length that I think his shooting is just so important to this offense, but am I wrong?
So I'm going to take the New York Times both sides answer and say that you're both right and wrong. Like, I think both points are true. I think this team as presently constructed needs his shooting. But I also think if this team wants to reach the ceiling that a team with Luka Doncic should reach, he should not be the third best player on the team, which is what he currently is. I think maybe Derek Lively. People might answer Derek Lively right now, but he shouldn't be your fourth. But then he shouldn't be your fourth best or fifth best. Really, he should be your sixth man, which he kind of has been. But like, he's been more important than a sixth man, if we're being honest, this season. So I think part of the reason they were able to make weather that in 2022 was because, remember, like, Reggie Bullock shot like a maniac that season to end the season and in the playoffs. So it's not that they, it's like they got someone to make those shots that he was making. So it's not that his defense is so bad or the other parts of his game are so bad they can live without the shooting. They just need, if they're going to take away his shooting, they still, like, they have to get some of that back. Like, they just can't drop his shooting and expect the gains to be made defensively or other aspects to make up for it wholly. And that's why tonight, like, Green made 4 of 7.
Sure.
Grant,
you need other guys who actually take the shots.
Yeah, Maxey, Grant, and Josh shot awesome from 3. So they can afford a game when Tim's not shooting well. So that's the formula. Like, if you want to move on from Tim, which, ultimately they either have to move on or just make him less important to the team. You got to replace that shooting somewhere, because the Mavericks are built to shoot. Like, you either need more players that can do things with the ball in their hand and create their own shots, or you need more of these Maxey, Josh Greens, Grant Williams. You need those guys to consistently make shots and take them. Like you said, taking them almost is more important than making them.
Well,
which
the one
sounds
thing
really
that,
stupid, but
the one thing that I think, like, the commenters and fans who really get driven crazy by Tim Hardaway Jr. really are I want to say misunderstanding, but sort of like like not valuing enough. When Josh Green misses 2 threes, he doesn't take the third one. He just doesn't. When Grant Williams misses his 900th open 3, of the season, he becomes a shrinking violet. It affects everything else in his game. Tim Hardaway can miss 16 straight shots and will willingly take the 17th.
Right.
I don't think you can put like a numerical value on how that both helps and hurts.
Yeah.
That's just my thought,
No, like Maxey has taken 11 threes in 2 games in February. He almost took that many in January total for the month of January. Like it is a confidence thing, and you have to shoot. And like Maxey he shot poorly in January, but like you said, he didn't shoot. Like he would have games where with one attempt, like his last 2 games in the month of January, he took 1 3-pointer combined in 2 games. Like you just can't, like that's to me is worse than like a guy going like 5 of 13 from 3. Like you need, because if teams aren't scared of you shooting, that changes the whole floor balance of your roster.
That's what I mean. And I think that the Mavs have a bunch of guys that teams are going to be like, well, if they beat us, fine.
Right. Exactly.
And I don't think, like in Jay in the chat says, well, if you move on from him, then distribute those shots between Kyrie and Luka.
Well, those shots for Tim are created for Tim. Like,
sure, for sure. I mean, I think it goes both ways. Like, I don't necessarily think Luka can shoot anymore and it be healthy. I do think Kyrie can afford to shoot some more.
He can shoot more threes. I think so.
Yeah.
What's he taking? How many threes is he taking? He's taking 7 a game, which is okay. He probably needs to take 8 or 9, I think, considering how good he is as a spot up shooter. Like he's legitimately one of the best spot up shooters of like all time. Like he's really good at that. So yeah, I would say get him up a couple more threes per game. But yeah,
I'm being a troll.
One
of our commenters, Ash, he's saying 118 points per game is low for the Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks average 118.2 points per game, so it's not low. That is a normal scoring game for the Mavericks.
Okay.
I just like winning sports arguments. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Well,
trying to think if there's anything else interesting.
If you don't have anything from this game, a listener follower asked me something kind of funny, and I kind of wanted to ask you, and I think it would be informative before the trade deadline.
Well, I think we should at least note that congratulations to Grant Williams for looking like a professional basketball player.
14 points in 28 minutes. I thought your tweet was kind of funny. Like
Look,
he's busted out of a shooting slump and he made 3 shots, but still that was.
I don't like to bash our broadcast team because number one, we know one of the guys, they're mostly friendly towards us. I don't like being demonstrative for the sake of it. Plus there's the fact that like when you talk about a sports team for 2 hours every night, you're just bound to say something that like rankles someone. But like I tuned in after missing the third quarter to hearing Mark Followell saying, Grant Williams really broke out of his slump tonight. And I look at the box score and he shot 3 of 5. And I'm just like,
hey man, he made 3 combined shots in the last 3 games. That's a slump buster
absolutely
for me.
Correct.
Yeah,
I just like, I'm such a hater. Like I spent, there's a CBS writer named James who like really like sort of really loves Grant Williams. He's just like telling me all day, he's like, you're not being fair. And I'm like,
wait, what?
I'm being fair.
I don't know.
Being fair. Grant Williams is a maddening basketball player.
I think
anyway, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Because as you know, there's been a lot of trade talk today, especially centered around Andrew Wiggins. We've got pieces in the pipeline for Mavs Moneyball addressing this and talking about this.
A lot of stuff.
Yeah. So, we've been joking. I made the tweet that, that it would be pretty funny if they traded for Wiggins because that would be like the 4th player in the last 8 years that you really don't like that the Mavericks have acquired.
Yeah.
With Harrison Barnes and Kyrie. And then if they got Wiggins and then
Harrison was 2016. So that's at least far enough back now.
Yeah. 8 years. Yeah. It's just still kind of funny. And I thought it would be funny. It'd be funny if they got Wiggins.
It'd be objectively funny.
Yeah. But someone replied and was like, are there any players Kirk would want the Mavericks to trade for? And I was like, you know what? Let's ask him. Of the rumor names, are there any names that you are particularly of interest to you? Or are you still kind of steel-minded with that?
So it's more to do with I don't want to give up first-round picks because I think it's really undervalued to where it's like if you were to trade a first-round pick and go get our guy Kyle Kuzma, does that move the needle? I mentioned that. And the answer has to be no. I don't mind Kyle Kuzma. I love Denny Advija, or however you say his last name. Though The Dallas Mavericks cannot acquire him. And if you don't know why, stare at your computer real hard and think about how that would work in that particular locker room. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I mean, there are players that I do like, but it's just the Mavericks have really made a knack of going after really actively bad basketball players. JaVale McGee,
Christian Wood. Like, I'm sorry, like being an NBA GM is hard, but you can't miss on your big swings, and the Mavericks have just, by and large, they've succeeded in spite of their mistakes, not because of their wins. Yeah.
That's just the simple. So it's, the reason I don't like Andrew Wiggins, and like, I consume a ton of basketball.
The reason you don't like him, other than he's probably the most actively harmful rotation player in the NBA right now. That's a pretty big one. And
like, this is where I this is where I become a really big asshole when I engage on Twitter, because I have no problem. In fact, I encourage this. I actively encourage you to watch your team. There's 82 games. It's hard to watch other teams, but I'm telling you, when Zach Lowe goes on a mini rant today on his podcast where he's like, no one should want to acquire this player, because he's like, it cannot be stated, Andrew Wiggins is one of the most disappointing players who's had a lengthy career to be drafted number 1 in a long time. Some guys are flat out busts that don't work or they get injured. Ayton, but like, he's up there with Ayton. Like, he really is.
Yeah. Do people not realize he's been in the league since 2014?
And he has had 1.5 good years of basketball. Go look. He's an actively harmful player. The thing he missed a lot of basketball last year for personal reasons. And that is what it is. And that has nothing to do with his play on the court. But I sincerely would ask everyone to consider what motivates him. He won an NBA championship the 1 year he was motivated. And then he's since gone back down to, he makes a ton of money.
26 next season, 28 after that, and then 30 after that. Those are his next 3 years.
So it's just the problem is I understand from like, let's say you're a 2K player, you hop on, you look at his measurables, you look at what he does, and you're like, man, this guy, he's got something. And you're right, he does have something. He just literally never taps into it. Mavericks fan in the chat says he won't even play on the Canadian national team. He refuses to play.
Yeah. I mean, what does it tell you that a team like the Warriors, who are desperately trying to keep the Steph Curry window open, are even entertaining this idea?
That's right.
Like, that's tough.
Well,
for me, it's more like, I don't think he would work, but like, if you traded, my whole point was like, if you give the Warriors, like, if it's purely like a salary dump and the Warriors kick in some draft picks and the Mavericks only trade like the Holmes and Markieff Morris instead of like the guys that aren't really playing. Yeah. None of the guys that are actually really contributing.
I think you'd have to consider that.
Then maybe that, but anything
that's different.
Value. Yeah,
that's different. And like, that's a what are you giving up kind of trade. Right. And
you should try to take advantage of the Warriors' desperation. But
I mean, like the reason the Kyrie Irving one bothered me so much was less Kyrie Irving and much more the fact that they pigeonholed themselves by giving away a 2029 pick. I understand that was probably going to happen in some way, shape, or form, but it still frustrates me. It just does.
Yeah. Like we had a nice discussion, we had a back and forth with Xavier in our Slack, and, we don't want to spoil it. I'm sure I haven't read his piece yet, but I'm going to edit it.
He makes the case for why.
He makes the case, for why. And at the end of the day, my thing is just the Warriors have no leverage right now because Wiggins is so toxic, both as an on-court player and as a contract.
Zach Lowe just never says stuff like that. He's so hedging, and he literally says to Tim McMahon on his show today, I don't think any team should trade for him.
Yeah, it's the only way it makes sense is if the Warrior, like, it's a salary. It's how teams attach sweeteners to bad players, and like that's where Wiggins is. So like you cannot trade anything of marginal, even low value. Like he's a zero value player right now in the NBA. So you can take a chance if the Warriors want to get rid of him so bad they just want to give him away.
Sure.
Okay, you can start talking me into that. But anything other than that, no. But What are some other names? Like, there's PJ Washington. There's some
PJ Washington
Drummond.
is somebody you've liked for a really long time.
I have.
And I think is a good player. It's just, again, what do the Mavericks have to give up? Does the first round pick they'd probably have to send in that deal.
What if they didn't? What if it was?
If they were able to move Josh Green for PJ Washington,
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, and again, if you love Josh Green, shout out to my friend Josh McSwag in the chat. Like, I get it, but it's just at a certain point you have to move on guys. And there's different players. Again, it's like the first round pick is where it hinges for me on everything. Like there was the Mark Stein one today. What was that one? What's wrong with me?
I think he had PJ Washington in his.
But he had swapping out Grant for
Grant for Bobby Portis.
Bobby Portis, which is like a distressed asset swap.
Yeah.
And I think I would do it, but I also cycle back to the fact that the Mavericks did a 2030 first round pick swap with the Spurs to go get him. And at that point, that trade's an utter failure. Yes. And I don't think the Mavericks want to call it on that yet. As much as like I occasionally, every 3 out of 9 out of 10 games want to send Grant to the moon. But I just don't think you can give up that quickly.
Yeah. And then I think Stein came out later, said that it would have to be more like I think both sides were like, okay, like we have the trade would have to be bigger than that.
All of my issues with trades circle around to the fact that you have one more chance. Like, I want the Mavericks to take that final swing to make a big move, to move the Mavericks in the, to roster wise, to be able to say, all right, we did everything we could within the framework that we created to keep Luka Doncic happy before he is at the end of this first contract. That's what I want. I think if you move off a first round pick right now, you're essentially charging something to a credit card that you can't afford to pay. And then that timeline where Luka is pissed off happens earlier. And I just don't feel happy. I don't like it. I don't like it. That's all.
Do you think that they need to keep these picks available in the summer to package them all together for one big move?
Yes.
Spread them out for
maybe spread them out, but not do something like, not do something that essentially changes them from being a potential 9-8-7 seed to a potential 9-8-7 seed. Like, it doesn't do anything. Like, I don't know.
But if they can get a guy like PJ or Daniel Gafford or Drummond without giving up,
do it
first.
Do it.
You're in for that. Okay.
I'm in.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would really like. I sort of almost need Drummond to be a Maverick.
He's also one of your guys.
Right, just so I can see people react to the shit he does in real time.
Yeah.
That's all. Like, I do actually think he would help. But
as a backup, yeah.
Yeah, as a backup big, he would help. So
yeah. Okay.
I also don't think the Bulls are going to do anything. Their ownership is so obtuse.
It's crazy. Yeah. Do you think that these last 3 Josh Green games are going to have lasting impact on what the Mavericks want to do at the deadline? Like, do you think he's going from on the table to off the table? Like, I'm always curious how they.
Nobody for the Mavericks except for Luka should be untouchable. That includes Kyrie.
Okay. It's
just that's the way it is. That was the way it is under Dirk.
Yeah. Okay.
And so
yeah, we just haven't talked. Me and you are both. I'm bad at fake trades. I'm bad at predicting what's going to happen. We just haven't talked about it, and I thought that was just funny because someone was like, "Well, who does Kirk want to trade? Like, who?" I
am glad that all the talk surrounding Dorian Finney-Smith is cool. Not because I dislike Dorian Finney-Smith, but just because I can't imagine trading something else to get back the guy that you sent away. Like, that would turn me into a crazy person.
Yeah, I think Jake Fisher. Today, our guy from Yahoo said that they've cooled off on Dorian. It sounds like it's PJ and Wiggins are the names they're talking about for forwards. So,
and this happens at every trade deadline where it's and Bobby was it ESPN's Bobby
Marks.
Bobby Marks says that I heard something crazy, like 11 teams hold 75% of future draft assets.
Yeah. And when you combine that with the play-in, there's just there's more buy. There's not enough.
There are buyers, but they don't have anything to buy with.
Right. There's no sellers.
Yeah.
These bad teams that normally would be that are in the 9-10 range that are normally like, okay, let's call it. They think that they can be a playoff team. Yeah. I think I saw somewhere else, especially after what the Heat did last year. The Lakers from the play-in tournament went from play-in to Western Conference Finals. So
Tim Cato had a good number of crazy ass trades today in his post. If you haven't read it.
Yeah.
So I sort of, this could go all sorts of different ways. Like part of why there's three main reasons we didn't really cover trade stuff at Mavs Moneyball this year. The first reason, I am running on absolute fumes with baby stuff. And so it makes keeping track of a lot of that stuff really difficult. The second reason is we are simply not that interested in it. It does unbelievable traffic. Go to DallasBasketball.com and look at what Dalton runs all the time. He is incentivized to run something on every single trade thing because it gets clicks. People love this time of year.
I mean, I'm pretty sure I was looking at our data the other day. I'm pretty sure our most trafficked post this season is when our guy Matt Martinez wrote about about a Pascal Siakam trade.
So we're just like,
what the people want.
We're not that interested in it. Like Josh and I don't like talking about it. We like talking about the actual basketball. So that's kind of why we're here. It's like sick kid. We don't really care. And then we also aren't that good at this, like in terms of like that. So it's those three things means, we're talking about it. The trade deadline is in 3 days. This is probably the first at a minimum, we don't talk about it regularly. And I think that sometimes to our detriment, but
yeah, for sure. And I think for me personally, if I had to get my 2 cents, I think if of the names rumored, I like PJ Washington the most. I think I would consider the green PJ swap.
You're the PJ.
I'm the architect.
You're the damn wellspring of PJ gossip from over the summer.
I am. I wanted them.
I really like this guy. Why doesn't somebody do something? And that became like 6 weeks of Mavs fan wish casting.
I know, because there was nothing about him last summer. There was and I was like, he's young and he's got some skill. What's really worrying though is the other team rumored for PJ is the Clippers. And like, dude, if the Clippers get him and they have Harden and Kawhi, Paul George, PJ, like that's a pretty salty foursome in your starting lineup, plus whatever center they're able to throw out. Zubac, I can't remember if he's healthy right now, or whoever they're playing at center, like he would be so good for them as like a connective piece between the stars, like just like a high talent guy. Someone in the chat says Clippers talks weren't serious, so that would be good. So yeah, if the Mavericks don't get him and the Clippers did that, like the Clippers are already like, we don't talk about it because we're not an NBA podcast, but they are quietly becoming like in that inner circle of contenders. They are playing really well. So if they got a guy like PJ to add to what they're doing, because they really do struggle with their front court, like that would not be fun for the rest of the Western Conference. So
shout out to Bryan Damaris for sparking them.
He really did. Oh my God. I think they're like, I think they've got like the best record in the league since then. Something.
I wouldn't be shocked if Bally's or Cuban makes him work concession stands next year to make up for that. Like I just can't like that is becoming one of the worst things that happened this year. I almost feel bad for him. Yeah. Almost. But as a person who says plenty of dumbass things myself, sometimes you got to eat it. All right. I think I'm going to hang out and see if anybody wants to do a post show because it's 9:15. But head over on to MavsMoneyball.com. We've got another game tomorrow. We'll be back tomorrow night. And then let's see here. We should have at least, there's going to be a lot of stuff on the site is the point. Like we normally try to run between 3 and 4 articles a day. I would say over the next week, we will probably have anywhere between 6 and 7 a day, just because of the nature of the games plus trade deadline stuff. So this has been Kirk Henderson and Josh Bowe. Thank you so much for hanging out. I will be right back with our second show. You guys should hang around and come talk a little basketball with me. Josh, you have a good night. Hello, friends. Welcome back to our first iteration of Mavs Party in some time. I'm Kirk Henderson, editor-in-chief over at MavsMoneyball.com. This is Pod Mavericks Mavs Party. You're joining, or really still hanging around after the fact that the Dallas Mavericks beat the Philadelphia 76ers 118-102. This is our fan participation live show where if you click the comment in the stream, the StreamYard link that is pinned to the YouTube live chat, you can come up here and hang out and talk basketball with me. If you're on Twitter and would like to join the show, send me a DM. I check them throughout this. I will send you a link where you can join the show directly. Like I said, the Dallas Mavericks just defeated the Philadelphia 76ers 118-102. It was a nice sort of palate cleanser is not right because the Mavericks have been eating shit for a long time, so they needed a lot more than a single palate cleanser. This was a game that felt a little more cathartic because it didn't feel quite as desperate as some of the other wins. It was a win because they really piled it on the Sixers, which was very nice to see. So far I've got my man Bryan, who is in here early most shows waiting to chat. If anybody else wants to come up, be sure to click that StreamYard link in the comment. If you don't know what I'm talking about, say something and I will post it again. All right, Bryan, what's up, man?
Nothing much, dude. How'd you enjoy the win?
It was good. So I gotta be honest with you. On last last show we ran, you came up early and you had a little riff, kind of frustrated about Kyrie's availability. And in that first half, when he was, I clipped it. I had it, and I was like, "Hey, I wasn't gonna tag you or anything, but I was about ready to post it and be like, this is where Mavs fans are." And then I just didn't. I was like, I don't want to do that. It's bad energy. Let's not do it. And it paid off. Kyrie had a nice little ball game, 10 of 17 from the floor. Still wish he would have shot a few more times, but what are you going to do? Eight assists. Nice little basketball game. Helped the Mavericks win in a game where Luka looked kind of like he'd had one too many Philly cheesesteaks. I don't really know what was up with him that game, but it's really nice to be able to not need an amazing performance from either one of these players and still get a win.
Yeah, no, it's funny. When I was like really upset that night, I actually tweeted pretty much what was going to happen once Kyrie got back. I think I said it up here on stage with you too. I said that he was going to end up playing like really passively or just like breaking shots altogether and being really like really rusty looking in the first quarter, maybe the first half, and that's exactly what happened. And then in the second half, he turned it up, and it was enough to pull away. Now, that was mostly because Josh did a lot of the heavy lifting in the first half for this team. But yeah, he did all the heavy lifting in the first half, at least offensively, to be quite honest. So, yeah, no, just I really need the Mavs front office to remain focused. Like, don't get fooled by these games. And I'm saying that for like two plays in particular. Josh was amazing tonight, and I really just want to I tweeted this too. I want to take a moment just to appreciate that even amidst all the trade rumors, he still went out there and played and didn't shit his pants like Tim Hardaway Jr. did and does every trade deadline, or like Grant Williams tried to do in the first half.
Something that was that kind of game, man. That was bad.
No, that was Tim. His annual like, I'm about to play like shit at this deadline. I'm not trying to get moved. He does that every year. Every year he's healthy at the deadline. He does this.
Man, I might have to look at this because I don't know if I paid that close of attention.
Look, man, go look at last year. Him and Christian Wood both stunk that week. They stunk that week. They were definitely afraid of getting traded. And yeah, Tim repeated tonight, but I've been team like get Tim off the team. Like I know we have to replace the shooting or whatever. We can manufacture that. Get him out of here. He's detrimental to the program. But I just need the Mavs. And I saw like when Josh was playing really, really well for most of the game. People were bringing back up the Stein report from the weekend about Josh being a player of interest for Charlotte if we make a PJ trade happen. And I was expecting to see, wow, Josh is really upping his trade value and playing really well. This might be the last time we see him in a Mavs uniform for all we know. So let's enjoy this. It's possible he gets traded. No, what was I saying? Oh, I don't know if I want to trade Josh. Brother, Josh just put together his first good solid month of basketball 3 years and 3 months into his career, man. I love Josh. I'm gonna love him whether he's here, whether he gets traded. I think he's gonna get traded to Charlotte, and I think he's gonna blow up because that's a really good situation for him. He can play his natural position, the two. As long as Kyrie's here, we don't need
Yeah.
to be wasting time thinking about what's best for Josh.
Right.
Like in this particular context, anyway.
That's not, and that has less to do with like Josh being bad. It's more contextual within.
Yeah, it's not even his fault. It's just look at the context of the team. Look at the two stars that we have in the positions that they play and what they do with the ball, right? What their roles are.
Mm-hmm.
There's not much room for Josh to grow in the way that he needs to on this team. And PJ is a hand in glove fit with this team on both ends, in my opinion. Remain focused.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the one thing that I thought was particularly interesting with Josh is like this was probably his finest game with Kyrie and Luka.
Oh yeah.
So if you're like a Josh Green truther, this is the game up. So like, see, it can happen. It can happen, and good is what I'll say. Good, because I'm still kind of very skeptical that they make a move. Because I don't see, and I just talked about this, I don't see any of the available players being, unless a team is just wanting to get out from under a particular kind of salary, being able to be moved without a first-round pick. I mean, the Wiggins contract is so bad that there's some Mavs people that I appreciate that are saying, if the Mavericks were to take Wiggins, they would need first-round compensation.
I've thought about that. I don't know if they get like a pick or a protected pick or anything. At best, maybe they get a second, but I could see that being a player-for-player swap. And honestly, if the players Tim and whoever to make up, like Tim, Seth.
Sure. No, that's a very different situation than where my head is. It's just, I like the first round picks are so oddly valued, and I don't want to necessarily say overvalued, because it's like when you got a team like the Thunder, which has future picks, and yet they can't, like, they're going to have to blow their team up because they have so many guys worthy of paying money to that they cannot. I mean, I suppose they could, but it doesn't seem likely that they're going to keep all their guys and all their picks. And it's just, it's this sort of thing to where I don't want to give it up. I want the market to reset. Like, I sort of think the NBA, like, this isn't going to happen, but I wish the NBA would have stepped in at like the previous collective bargaining agreement and said like had much harsher penalties for trading picks down the line. I don't like pick trading. I think it's become too much of a like shorting stocks, like big, like situation kind of thing. It drives me nuts.
Yeah, I can see that.
Oh, but yeah, this is the kind of win that really makes you feel a little bit better about things. Had they lost to a team that was missing this many starters, I think we would have had to have a different discussion. The Sixers came out and punched him in the mouth. Like losing to Kelly Oubre Jr. is just a painful situation I'm not interested in. Pat Beverly out there being Pat Beverly doing Pat
Beverly floaters off the dribble, just nasty shit.
There was a lot of pain in that. Marcus Morris Sr. There's a lot of Marcus Morris Sr. offense tonight. Like shot attempts. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. I think the trade deadline will be weird. It's always active. These teams can't help themselves, but I just don't want to. I'm just not married to any particular outcome. And what's nice, nice is not the right word. I don't really think there's any kind of consensus out there. Not like our opinion really matters as fans relative to what the team does, but I feel like there's not this overarching one thing that everyone agrees is the thing we should do. And you could just see that looking at the replies to the Andrew Wiggins thing. You can see it and when talking about, whether the Mavericks should try to make a play for any of the Washington Wizards that are available. And that actually makes me feel a little bit better because it means there's not like the obvious consensus thing to happen. That way I'm not like direct, because like the Kyrie thing, I don't want to believe it, but you reread all the reporting in hindsight, and it was something they were working on for a while. Like that was not something that happened fly by night. Like it was,
right.
It was a real thing.
Yeah, Stein was reporting on that pretty much every step of the way, and he kept our name in it. Once it came up, he kept our name in it pretty consistently enough to where we should have like recognized, and eventually we did. Oh, that's too much smoke here for nothing to happen. I personally think that's what's happening with the Josh and PJ thing. Like, I think that deal is going to happen. It's just a matter of, is Nick Richards included? What do we give up in order to make that happen? Do we send Grant out of here along the way because Charlotte, maybe, we tap back into that interest they had in him in the summer?
Yeah.
Maybe, something along those lines. But I think Josh for PJ, whatever salary it takes to make that work, however
That's a real
happen.
thing. If that's a real thing, you just do it. And the talk over the summer was just like, it's going to take this to get this guy. Like, it wasn't a player, picks and player. And so if you could get a guy like a straight up thing, I just don't see how it's possible. I don't see Charlotte selling like that.
I'm not going to lie. I see it not only just because.
Who's their GM? Kupchak.
Is it Kupchak still?
Kupchak only deals with other old GMs. So there's this really cool story today. I'm actually going to pull it up. Last night in basketball, it's my friend Jared Dumid. He writes for this website. It's his own Substack called Last Night in Basketball. I'm gonna pull this up on the main screen, and so just like share it with everybody. Share screen. This is why I wish I had a producer. Should do this sort of stuff with me. But he has this NBA trade deadline, which executives deal with each other more often. And I have this thing locked because I would need to sign into a Substack. But he basically went out and compiled this incredible amount of data on who deals with who within the league. Because I was just sitting there, I was bitching to him, and I said he's a data guy. So I was like, I really think if you could look into this, it'd be really cool. Because I said, I feel like the Mavericks only deal with like 3 or 4 teams, like ever. The Knicks, the Wizards, and every now and again, it's like there's one other random team, but there's not a lot of like movement in the trade circles. And it ends up being that actually is the case, that these guys deal with each other. Sam Presti is the only one who deals with everyone. And the only team he hasn't dealt with in a long time is the Spurs, which is where he came from. So it's I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that's potential out there, but I'm just not good at wish casting, I think is what it comes down to.
Oh, it's all I know how to do, man. I get in that trade machine every day with just 3 minutes and a dream.
Yeah.
And just go and make something happen.
I don't know how y'all do that, because I just like look at it and I'm like, I don't want to do this.
Dude, I simply I take 3 minutes where I'm just not working, or I go to the bathroom. I pull up Fanspo. I think about who I might happen to want that day, or whose name I've been seeing like in the tweets over the last 24 hours. I just scroll, see if a name pops up that really just comes to me. And I'm like, all right, let's see how the money works. Let's see how many picks it would take.
Well, Brian, it doesn't seem like anybody else wants to join. And that's okay. There's another game tomorrow night, and I got to get back in the habit of doing these, to making sure some of the folks that like joining, do so more regularly. I need to actually advertise it in YouTube just so people see it. But before we get out of here, I think it's very important that we do one more thing, that we consider, just congratulating head coach Jason Kidd with his 300th career win as a head coach tonight. And he did it, guys, the same way he's done everything all year long, with his hands in his pockets. Easy going as can be. Congratulations, Jason Kidd.
Something along those lines. 300 wins. Wow, that is certainly something.
He's gonna come kill me in his sleep one day. All right, guys, I'm gonna go do something else because it's 10 o'clock. Everybody, thanks so much for hanging out tonight. We'll come back tomorrow night. It's another early game, 6:30 start on TNT against the Brooklyn Nets. Brian, thanks for hanging out. Everybody else in the chat, thanks for hanging out. I'm probably just going to post this all as one stream. Everybody be good, and we will talk tomorrow night.